sir?
You can identify yourself and your subject just for you to get a sense.
Okay, I'm Dr. Pankaj. I am an assistant professor in the area of marketing. So, as we were talking about, or we listened to you about our 5,000 years of history, sometimes I wonder that, what is the direction of our history? We once had 500 plus princely state, and today we have much lesser than. So the idea is this direction of history towards unification or diversification, because sometimes when we look at the things in present scenario, we feel that we are more divided than we are united. So I sometimes wonder whether it's like cyclical unification, diversification, or we are unifying, or we are diversifying. So I just would like to have you understand.
It's a good question, and thank you, Professor Pankaj. You see, India can best be defined by a cliche, which is unity in diversity. I would not be mesmerized by the diversity. Many foreigners or observers from outside, when they come to India, are so overwhelmed by the visible diversity that they believe that, more or less, as the Cassandras had predicted in 1947, this nation can never hold. Why have we still remained alone? Not one secessionist movement has succeeded in India since 1947. Why? Because we are a young nation, but an ancient civilization. When I say that, it doesn't mean that there were no kingdoms, that there were no, what do you call them, kingdoms or princely states and so on. There were. Was there something unifying them in their separateness? That's the question. Now I'll give an example. Again from Adi Shankaracharya. He was born in the 8th century CE or AD. India did not have a notion of one nation, but it had a 4,000-year-old notion of one civilization. You see, nation states came up only in the 17th century with the Treaty of Westphalia. It was the colonial conceit of the British that they thought that they have created India. Because in the 8th century, Adi Shankaracharya set up 4 months. Sringeri in the south. I'm just giving one example, I can give many more. Sringeri in the south, Dwarka in the west, Puri in the east, and Joshimath Badrinath in the north. It's the civilizational map of India. If you see, for instance, in the Puranas, in the Bharatvarsh version, it more or less almost accurately gives the length and breadth of Bharatvarsh. So, civilizationally we have been united, but with a great number of diversity. People don't understand. When A.K. Ramanujan said there are 300 versions to the Ramayana, because Valmiki wrote a Ramayana, Tulsidas wrote a Ramayana, but when you take it to different regions, they are adapted to their levels. But still, you stand anywhere in India like this, it's Krishna. If it's Onam, then it's Vaisakhi, all may be having different names, they fall on the same day. So that's what I mean, that there is diversity. But underlying it is a unity often missed by people who see it only at the surface.
Hi sir, I'm Radhika Kaushik, I'm assistant professor here, and I'm so glad you mentioned 300 Ramayanas. I say that because I've read that as a part of my curriculum in Delhi University long back, and at the time when I was reading it, and I taught it later, there was, I'll come to my question, but I'm just giving a background, that in 2008 there was a huge vandalization of the history department when the Ramanujam essay had sort of surfaced and was widely read. And Then those dissenters a committee was formed and they were asked why did they vandalize after reading 300 Ramayanas, the essay. And three of them said we had not much of a problem. They tagged along with the fourth one. And he said, no, this disrespects the kind of Hindu religion he's propounding. The curriculum then actually just out of a sudden dropped the text without sort of taking the larger academia in question and the people who read and taught it. And I still till today have very great discomfort about the action that was taken because it's a wonderful, wonderful text. And I always feel that while talking about the diversity, there is a certain element that we need to sort of understand and apprehend. And this dichotomy of understanding diversity and a larger population that is very uncomfortable with this questioning of dogma, which you also say, I'm halfway through your book, which you say it's less about dogma and more about debate. But how should we reinitiate this debate with a lot of population that don't want to engage in this debate?
There will always be in an attempt to debate some people who do not wish to do that, but that has not been our tradition. Even when Mandan Mishra and Adi Shankaracharya had a debate, Mandan Mishra was initially not inclined, but he agreed. And then his wife was made the empire. So that's not the issue. The difference is that perhaps attempts to strengthen the unification in India are justified. Attempts to homogenize India are not. Because we revel in our diversity without threatening our unity. And therefore, today the challenge is that some people believe that India should be in the image that they have of what India should be, which is dangerous. It will ultimately lead to a brittleness that can challenge the thousands of years unity which has defined India, both as a civilization and now as a nation. What you have to do about India is to, that famous analogy, is the word trousers singular or plural? It's singular at the top and plural at the bottom. So, that is what it is.
Good morning, sir. This is Dr. Chandran, and I'm a faculty of management. I'm teaching HR and ethics here. So my question is something which is very confined to the topic. Who are we? And when I'm teaching to my students and even I'm learning, we all are somewhere juggling with finding the balance between EQ and IQ. So here comes the topic called SQ. So now I'm really curious to know the better understanding about spiritual quotient. How can we get benefited to find a balance between EQ and IQ with the help of SQ?
Actually, there is a link between all three. EQ stands for
Emotional quotient.
emotion. Emotion can be entirely controlled spiritually, largely. Unless you get it more by a spree of shopping. But emotional quotient is largely because of the equilibrium, equanimity of your mind, which is something that doesn't drop from the sky, you have to strive for it. IQ becomes unlimited when it's hyphenated with spiritual. Because by definition there are no barriers to them. There are and there are not. So, my own feeling is that we have become adrift from our quest. Somehow we have allowed the overgrowth of ritual. Yeah, and I don't blame it because, in Hinduism, if that's what you are talking about, I have great respect for all faiths and all of them have something to teach us. But in Hinduism, since I have worked on it, there is no one book, there is no one church, there is no one mandatory ritual, there is no one pope. So it is at one level a Jivan Shaili, it's a way of life. And very often you have Hindus living it as a way of life on the surface only. We don't know about the great depths of our own spiritual tradition. It's neither taught to us as part of the educational curriculum. If it's begun to be taught today, there is always the danger that it will be done in a manner which is divisive. How do we face this challenge? But it's required. Not only Hindus. The four great religions that were born here, and the fifth of which we have one of the largest adherents in the world. Hinduism, Buddhism, Jainism, Sikhism. They are the Indic religions born out of this. And of course, Islam we have among the largest. But for each of this, we have to be able to have them enlightenedly internalized as part of our knowledge system. Otherwise, I'm afraid, how do you develop the SQ?
Thank you, sir.
So I just wanted to mention, I think you made a very relevant point here that without getting derailed as you go into this journey by being accused of being this or that, at least our view here, and we are at the beginning of this journey, is can we connect our students with nature, which has no religion, if I have used the word. So above this hall, in this stepped fashion, we have a place where you can sit due west and see the setting sun and reflect. If you go up, there's a hillock at the back, you can go right up and see the sunrise. Then we have one tree right now on the beautiful place, created a sitting space which we call the listening tree. And so we are attempting to create spaces where students engage with themselves through nature. Quite devoid of divisions of schemes of thought. This is the built structure we are using, but quite obviously we are in search of methods and ways and rituals to open the minds of our students to the point that you're making, to have a deeper understanding of what is common among these things. The point he's making is what is common among these things. And that commonness need not be as abstract as, I am that, to start with. But the commonness can come when we just, for example, we have A.K. Singh and Kamal, who are busy building the environment while Parimal and Professor Khanna and the others use that environment to open the minds of students and give them answers to what they're searching, and they will be searching at the topmost level to what's the package I will get when I get out. Okay, they come with that question. The parents, when they come during discussions, when we do this, we do an admission interaction process. We don't do a selection rejection. We give a lot of weight. We have to look at the marks, but there's a conversation. The number one question the parents is, what's the package? And you can't blame them because they're all conditioned to think like success is equal to bigger package. And we don't want to tell them it's wrong, because that's not wrong. It is one of the elements of what you're looking for. So, I wanted to comment, and when I said you have to decide whether you want to be a guru or not, it is the search of these questions. What are those common unifying things which I'm just connecting to nature to say, if you can sit and watch the sun in silence and have that appointment with yourself and feel a sense of, going inwards, or sit there and watch the sun coming in. So those experiences, physical experiences we are creating, while between that and the highest level of, okay, what's the package and therefore what should I study, is cyber security getting a higher salary, I'll change my line. We let them change their lines as well. Now we have a case of an MBA student who's wanting to come to computer science. So we give that flexibility. But I think between this being connected with nature and the package, there's a big journey, and I want you to just give some initial thoughts, and perhaps we set up conversations, small and big. And small to me sometimes are more educated. But what would be your guideline and direction before we get to the next question?
You see, the way I feel it cannot be in the form of moral science class, which I found particularly uninteresting. It has to be in the nature of a formal, informal dialogue, periodically with batches of students on aspects of thought. Do you know, for instance, and I'm sure so many of you do, that there was not one but 6 systems of Hindu philosophy. Even people, science students may not know that one of them talks about the atom. All 6 could perhaps be atheists. They don't talk of God. Their search is not for divinity, but what could be the ultimate truth. They are atheists. So what I'm saying is there is so much to talk. The remarkable thing is Bhakti movement, Sufism. But it should be conversational, it should open questions, you answer, but guide people to that great reservoir of knowledge and that great ignition to curiosity. Indians cannot become unidimensional. It's not a good thing. And the other thing that Rajibhai mentioned about nature, I think it's an excellent idea, but never leave it in the hands of Hindus today. Because, I don't mean it as a pejorative. Surya is a god, Bhumi is a goddess, which they mean. The river is a goddess, Ganga. A tree is a god. That's our respect for nature. But let's not mix nature with ritualistic religion.
Varma sir, you have translated Gujarati and hence this question. Why are we Indians so fond of songs, especially film songs?
Do you think there is something wrong in that?
I want to ask whether our ancestry has got anything to do with it.
I don't think so. I think certain traditions become powerful by reinforcement over a period of time. So many of our folk songs go back thousands of years. Take our system of collective devotional gathering. तो कीर्तन तो ही होता है, songs हैं, bowls हैं, they sing ballads हैं, and by the way, it's a tremendously rich musical tradition, tremendous, unbelievable. Rhythm, the science of rhythm as part of Indian civilization is pure mathematics. And it is somewhere entered in our bones. And here's a dancer sitting, she knows the whole lay system and the rhythm pattern. It's so essential. So I suppose there are traditions which get reinforced so long as the melody is nice and the words are there.
Good afternoon, sir. I'm a 2021 graduate from NIIT University. So you mentioned about Maya in your talk. So when I look around and in the past, we see even the most able-minded people and even the conscious thinkers, they get entangled in Maya and they kind of lose their thought process. So, and be it money, be it pride, fame, anything. So, is Maya completely unavoidable, or is there a way to just walk past it untouched?
Maya is not avoidable. You know how our texts say Maya is Nisargik, Anadi, Anand. It doesn't mean this. But in a sense it does. Avidya or lack of correct perception. Dosha of perception, error. This happens to all of us. It happens the moment we are born. We think we are only this, whereas we are that. I spoke about it. But Maya is actually a Shakti. They say that Shiva is Chitta, pure consciousness. Parvati is Chitta Rupini. She gives form to that consciousness. Maya is all powerful. If Brahma is Anadi Anand, so is Maya. So it's not as if you can walk, it's something concrete that you can walk around it. But the moment the perception clears, in Advaitic, they say its two instruments are Avaran and Vikshep. Avaran masks the reality. Vikshep distorts the reality. The net result is dosha of perception. But it can be rectified. I often say that one of the most easy examples to understand is the serpent and the rope. To understand Maya. So long as you think the rope is a serpent, the serpent exists in your mind. The moment you realize that no, it's only a rope, the serpent has ceased to exist. That is the way to conquer.
मेरा नाम अजय है, मैं मैनेजमेंट पढ़ाता हूँ यहाँ पे। तीन टर्म्स बहुत पॉपुलर हो गई हैं अब, दो तो हमें पहले से पता था पर तीसरी कुछ सालों से सुनाई दे रही है। तो पहली तो है हिंदुइज्म, जो मेरी अंडरस्टैंडिंग है कि इट्स मोर फ्रॉम ए ज्योग्राफिक पर्सपेक्टिव, इट केम फ्रॉम द रिवर इंदू एंड दैट्स व्हाट आई अंडरस्टैंड। दूसरी है जो हमारा ओरिजिनल रिलीजन जिसको सनातन धर्म, द इटर्नल वन बोलते हैं। अब तीसरी टर्म कुछ सालों से बहुत ज्यादा प्रचलित हो गई है, हिंदुत्व। ना जब त्व लगाते हैं तो मेरी अंडरस्टैंडिंग की एट्रीब्यूट्स होते हैं, जैसे शिवा का शिवत्व, प्योर कॉन्शियसनेस से और प्योरिटी। तो ये हिंदुत्व में क्या सिमिलैरिटीज या डिस्टिंक्शंस हैं? इज इट सेम, डिसिमिलर? आई मीन आई एम क्वाइट कंफ्यूज्ड अबाउट इट। मे बी लिटिल थॉट लाइट फ्रॉम यू वुड बी वेरी।
इसके लिए भी एक अलग से लेक्चर होगा, थोड़ा सा।
The Guru is getting his agenda set up. And I'm getting him to set up an agenda.
क्योंकि इस विषय पर बहुत अमल करना जरूरी है, बिना किसी कलेश। तो हिंदुत्व के मायने आपने जैसे बताया कि हिंदू धर्म के बुनियादी तत्व हिंदुत्व, यहां तक तो ठीक है। सनातन भी ठीक है, क्योंकि इसलिए सनातन ठीक है क्योंकि ये सबसे दुनिया का बेहतर धर्म नहीं है, पर ये इतना पुरातन है और आज भी है और 5000 साल पहले भी था, तो सनातन भी ठीक है। हिंदुइज्म एक का मेरा ख्याल हमने तो इन्वेंट नहीं किया। इतना जरूर है कि 4th century 5th century BCE में भी, चाहे वो ग्रीक्स हो, चाहे वो पर्शियंस हो, चाहे वो चाइनीज हो, वो कहते थे कि इंडस सिंधु, आपने जैसे कहा, उसकी जो साउथ के लोग हैं वो हिंदू है, इंडियन है, वो भी उनके शब्द थे, बट वी वर कलेक्टिवली रिकॉग्नाइज्ड एज पार्ट ऑफ a singular civilization and we dwelt in this geographical area. हिंदुत्व से मुझे परेशानी नहीं है, हिंदुत्व के दुरुपयोग से मुझे परेशानी, और इस पर हम अलग से चर्चा कर सकते हैं।
Good afternoon, sir. I am Dr. Vijay. I teach physics here, and as a student of science, still, I gone through with this question that who am I? who I am. And of course, Nirvan Shaktam is one thing with Adi Shankaracharya written. And then he says that I am Shiva. Then what is Shiva? There is another Ved Sar Shiva stuff, which actually Adi Shankaracharya written. He defines what is Shiva in his terms. That na bhumir, na chapo, na vahanir, na vayu, na nacha akashimasa, na tandra, na nidra, na shni, grishmo, na shita. And so there is a full 8 lines are there. And then I tried actually find out what is Shiva. And if you go, for example, in the Varanasi, there are ancient sculptures which say that Shiva Linga is not Shankar. It's actually a mixture of Brahma, Vishnu, Maya, and Shankar, and everything combined. And that's the supreme. But the doubt comes to my mind the moment I read in Bhagavad Gita where Lord Krishna have shown his Vishnu Swarup to Arjuna, saying, Sarva Dharman Parityaj Mam Ekam Sharanam Vraj, only respect to me. Am Tvam Sar Papebhyo Mokshishami. I am the only supreme. What is supreme?
Very knowledgeable, very good question. When Lord Krishna said, I am supreme, he had ceased to be Krishna. He could be Shiva. And Shiva as supreme could be Vishnu and Brahma both. ये Hindus ना एक harmonious schizophrenia.
Harmonious.
मतलब, and you know, at one level, we have forget the Trinity. We have 30 lakh gods and goddesses. And at another level, at the back of our mind is, they are all one. So Shiva का भी यही है. But हाँ, what is interesting about Shiva, and Shankaracharya Nirvana Shatakam which you started, that he says, I am Shiva. In most other religions, it could be blasphemy. How can you say? एक बहुत उत्तम सूफी फिलोसफर थिंकर मिडिल ईस्ट में, नाम भूल रहा हूँ उनका, शायद उन्होंने कहा अनुल हक, I am the truth. He was beheaded. Beheaded. Here Shiva is saying, I don't believe there has been anyone burnt on the stake or killed because of blasphemy in Hinduism. मैं आपको बहुत से मिसाल दे सकता. चारवाक स्कूल है, वो कहते हैं वेदास इज द बंच ऑफ लाइज. वो भी हिंदू है. सो कहने का मतलब ये कि शिवा को आप एक सगुण रूप से देखिए, और जो डिपिक्शन है, it has a grandeur which is, the dancing Shiva, the 4 hands, flame around, the sheer dynamism of the movement. वो एक शिवा है, एक निर्गुण है, because he is regarded to be Brahma personified, और इसलिए लिंग शिवलिंग, which some people consider a phallic symbol. I don't, but I have nothing against those things. कहने का मतलब ये है कि हमारे यहाँ कोई परिभाषा करना बड़ा मुश्किल है. इसके नीचे जो एक फाउंडेशनल बुनियादी सोच है, वो सब क्या हो जाए.
So myself, Athar Divakar. I am currently pursuing BTech in CSE. I am a third year student. So my question is that all of us are seeing that we as a country are going at a tremendous rate, and if not sure the largest country in terms of economy, but one of the largest. But as you said earlier, that spiritual quotient can surely increase our IQ and can also help in controlling our emotions, which can eventually result in the growth of a person and which will result in a growth of our country. So considering the current situation of our society where materialism has become the sense of pride and richness, so where do you see our society in terms of spirituality today and in the coming years?
पहले तो मैं आपको ये कहना चाहता हूँ कि सेठ, if you want to see true Confucian balance, That is what you were talking the Hindu worldview. Moksha nahi hai. Dharma, artha, kama, moksha. In other words, there are 4 purusharthas. Dharma, right conduct, let's say basic definition. Artha, the pursuit of material well-being. When people talk about materialism as something alien to Hindus or Indians, I am shocked. Arey baap, we make the most resilient business. And our businessmen have their feet on the ground, their eyes on the balance sheet. I went to a place I often say called Burkina Faso for the African Union Summit. Nice country, but its capital was called Ouagadougou. I told a friend of mine, I'm going to Ouagadougou. He said, same to you. And I went to Ouagadougou. I was then writing this book, Being Indian, and I found that the largest department store of Burkina Faso was run and owned by an Indian who had come as a migrant just a few years ago. So let's not say that, and I can give you a story. So we pursue materialism. Where we can go wrong as a society is the balance between Lakshmi and Saraswati. If we lose that balance, then there is a war. And I'm afraid we are losing it. इस पर हमें चिंता करनी चाहिए और उसको रेस्टोर करने के लिए क्या जरूरी है उस पर सोचें.
Sir, I'm Shubhra. I'm pursuing my PhD in English Literature at NIIT University. My question is directed to you, sir. In Delhi University, there were 2 Dalit authors, Mahashweta Devi and Bama. Both of them were removed last year. So, considering you say we are a rich, diverse nation, why as students are we constricted to just Hindu literature and why is Dalit literature being removed from the Delhi University curriculum?
You see, diversity is not synonymous with intolerance. They are antithetical to it. We have now new takedaras of defining what is Hindu. And their evangelical belief in how right they are is directly correlated to their level of ignorance. This is the diverse country. Let 100 flowers bloom, which has been the case. So, as I said earlier, and again this is part of a separate activity, we should talk peaceful. I don't like that. But we can unify the nation, but not homogenize. That will be a disaster.
Good afternoon, sir. My name is Rajendra. So, I have a doubt related Atharvaveda and Upanishad. What kind of Brahma, Gyan and Dharma it's written in Atharvaveda and Upanishad? There is a fundamental contradiction between Manusmriti, Atharvaveda and Upanishad. So, can you throw some light on that?
Good question. The Upanishads are the end of the Vedas. Vedanta. My son's name is Vedanta. The different Upanishads are attached to different Vedas. What the Vedas are saying could be dramatically different to what the Upanishads attached to it is saying. So, the 4 Vedas, उनके साथ अलग-अलग Upanishads, and that is why it's called Vedanta. उनमें तो अंतर है क्योंकि जो Upanishads हैं, उसमें तो बहुत सी चीजें जो Vedas में कही गई, including कर्म कांड, how to conduct a ritual and a worship, तो है ही नहीं बिल्कुल. They are only talking of spirituality, metaphysics, Brahma, that ultimate union. As far as Manusmriti is concerned, it came much later. Manusmriti probably was codified at the end of the current millennium. Maybe 1900 or the last millennium. So around, no. At the cusp of BCE and CE. So हमारी तो history उसके साथ 3000 साल पहले भी थी. And when was the Rigveda written? Now latest evidence tells us that it has been predated by at least 2000 years. Goes back to 4000 BC. So Manusmriti came later, and Manusmriti is not a consistent text. It itself has many contradictions because it's a compilation. But the Manusmriti, to my mind, reflects by then the vested, stratified interests of society, especially on two matters: Dalits, as we call them today, and gender discrimination. Yeah.
Thank you, sir. So I have one more question. So there are two ways to define the Brahmagyan. One was the Nirguna Margi, another is Sarguna Margi. Nowadays, Nirguna Margi is almost in a bottom layer. So what are the fundamental reasons behind it?
Nirguna is a very difficult thing to worship, but an easier thing to accept and understand. That is why after Adi Shankaracharya, you had Ramanujan, who came with Vishishta Advaita, because he was responding to the felt need of Hindus and devotees to define divinity in a more comprehensible manner and not only as Nirguna, attributeless. That's the philosophical concept. It is not a concept that fulfills a devotee's need to go to a deity, surrender, prapatti, or ask, or sing, or be lost in devotional ardor. So, Vishisht Advaita came up only in order to not challenge Nirguna, having accepted it to derive from it the possibility of a struggle deity. And it's a much easier path. But there is no contradiction between the two. Let me give you the example. Adi Shankaracharya wrote on Nirguna Brahma. His stotras are all about a struggle deity. Total devotion, surrender. So, when I said that we are harmonious conservative, जो पूजा भी करता है ना वो भी कहता है The Almighty is one. मंदिर की भी जरूरत नहीं. ये है हमारे साइकिल.
So, Pavan, you have actually invoked the question simply for the fact that you started with nothing less than the cosmos and what was before. And from the time when it was formulated in the manner that we know it today, the Big Bang, it took a couple of billion years for the human to arrive at maybe 100 million years, the Homo sapien. And from that position to the point in time when we can talk about a 5,000 year civilization is minusculely small in the context of that larger era of evolution. And I just sort of wonder, and maybe you might provide some insights, that who knows that this little burp, if I may say, might last just another 5,000 years before this Homo sapien transforms or becomes something else. And we already have enough commentary that you could have all robotics, you could have half robotic, half biological, you could have evolutions of new biologicals. I'm sort of wondering as to what would your sense be of how this will evolve into the future basis the knowledge that we have acquired as a civilization. What would be your thoughts on that?
Harpal, to be honest, I'm not sure whether we didn't have robotics in the past. By that I mean not Dinanath Bhattara's school of history. where he said aeroplanes. What I'm saying is, when we see the sun in the morning, we are seeing the sun not as it is, but as it was 8 minutes ago. Because that is the time light takes to travel. Today, scientists are catching waves, whatever you call it, from an exploding star billions of years ago. Somewhere the Mahabharata is going on by the time light reaches there. In other words, Einstein said time itself is relative. Point number one, and we can discuss this also. The second
Another lecture, listening to you.
No, secondly, this remarkable motto of Anadiyan, you see, used to said that you assume that everything began with the Big Bang. That's what scientists, even Stephen Hawking wanted to believe that. But now scientists are saying that if everything began at a finite time and the universe is supposed to be 13 billion years old, from an inflationary expansion from a Big Bang, there is nothing to argue that there will not be a rewinding of that called the Big Crunch. So you will go back to the origins. And therefore it's a sthiti, utpatti, sthiti, pralaya. Utpatti, sthiti, pralaya, utpatti. That is why it's an adi anant, eternal. So therefore, whether it's the 5,000 years of which we are saying the oldest civilization, who knows what has happened in the past? There has been destruction, there has been... Even what is amazing is that even scientists today, including Stephen Hawking, are understanding ultimately the limits of definitive knowledge about origins. और चीजों के बाद that is something we can do.
I'm Santosh Vyas, Principal, Sarvaswani International School for Girls, New Delhi. Sir, first of all, I would like to thank you for such an enriching lecture, which has solved so many of our doubts. My one question is that, beyond this, when with your knowledge of the scriptures and Vedas and Upanishads, with your understanding, when we talk in Hinduism about, that the cycle of birth and death, and that, we are ever evolving souls, and you have to go through that, 84,000. The idea is that you have to purify yourself into much, become one with the soul. So each one, even in Islam, I've heard that, we have billions of lives. So is it that, that there is reincarnation and the cycle of birth and death for each one of us? What is your take on that? I would like to understand. I'm confused about that.
I wish I knew. Because at one level, my mind says that essentially we have invented the concept of reincarnation because we are unable to accept the finality of death. At one level. At another level, my own, it's not an easy thing to even claim to do, but suit would be not moksha ultimately after 1,000 lives. Bhai, kitna suffer kare? By suffer I mean the pun. Kitni journey chalegi and also suffer. I believe in moksha as my religion teaches me in this life. And at least in Advaita, and Adi Shankaracharya says, you can follow the Jnana Marg, the Bhakti Marg, the Karma Marg, and yet nothing can ever short circuit the possibility of intuition. कभी antenna correctly aligned होगा. It happened to Eckhart Tolle. If you believe him, it happened to Sadhguru. I know Swami Ramakrishna Paramahansa. He would go into a trance, he sees the flock of birds, he goes into a trance. He is with that power. So, actually, Advaita theory says that you don't need Panditya, virtuosity of knowledge. You need Balya. Be childlike. Simple. Watch the sunset. Go for a walk. Be happy while you can be happy. Listen to your wife.
On that very fundamental note, I'll pass the meeting back. Yeah, go ahead.
You know, the big divide between realizing the omnipresent and thinking to understand what one is on one side, engaging in ritualistic practice on the other side, which poses a challenge today because there are clearly the pro and the anti. The anti is more the ones who cannot understand it. It's something that faces every family, perhaps, where rituals have followed down. It becomes more and more difficult to get the younger generations interested in ritual, the meaning of ritual. You yourself said that Adi Shankara, on whom you have done a great deal of research, while he spoke about the Upanishads and the all presence, also promoted the worship of individual deities through his scripts, etc. So he himself must have realized that that is the way to sustain and create greater awareness on these lines. So, before we wrap up today, what is your down-to-earth advice between people? It's not easy for everyone to go into a mountain and start thinking of the omnipresent. It's also not easy to persuade everyone to go into a ritualistic system. What is your one-liner advice for all of us, predominantly the audience today? What do we go home and what do we do to follow what you have said today? What should be a practical
one-liner? Please practice rituals without exclusion and follow them in a spiritual way. So I'll tell you why. Rituals are a remarkable tool to still the mind. It's like cooking. Cut vegetable, put. People enjoy cooking because it takes your mind away from everything else and you are busy in that process. For instance, for me, bridge is there. For 2 hours, my mind is away because I play a good game with people of the same caliber and I enjoy it. So, ritual is nothing wrong, but practice ritual not by excluding, because we are a very hierarchical society, even today. Although weakened, the stranglehold of the caste system, of the remnants of the notion of untouchability and so on and so forth have not gone completely. Practice ritual, but practice it with inclusion if you need to. Excess is in any range. Avoid excess and don't leave the pallu of the spiritual search.
Wonderful. I can't resist saying this because of the Bollywood question that came to you. I hear that amongst the 4 Vedas, in the Samaved, the whole chanting in the Samaved is based on a musical pattern, which is actually the forerunner of Indian classical music as it is today.
It's true. In fact, if you read our treatise, the origin of classical music, you see, Samaved is chanted, but the chanting has a melody and a rhythm, and classical music and percussion. The rhythm part of Indian classical came from there. It's recognized, acknowledged by the treatises on music and classical.
The next time I'll look forward to your next lecture, but please consider a rishi who is not very well known in the northern parts but is around here, Ravana Maharishi, who did intensive research on this concept of who am I? Know thyself. Thanks.
Thank you, sir.